The steering wheel is still warm. The driver's seat is pushed back as if someone stood up in a hurry, the dome light clicking off before it can spill more than a pale circle across the gravel. It's a December night on the Waccamaw River, wet air, mud, and the hush of water sliding past the planks at Peachtree Landing. A green Dodge Intrepid sits crooked, not quite in a space, nose toward the black water. The doors are locked. There's no phone on the floorboards, no purse, no keys tossed careless on the dash. The ramp lights catch the frost on the hood, and then there's just the river again, quiet and blank, holding its breath. 2 days earlier, on Tuesday, December 17th, 2013, 20-year-old Heather Elvis was doing the simple, hopeful things people do to move on. She had a new date with a young man named Stephen Schiraldi. They drove around Myrtle Beach looking at Christmas lights. He showed her how to drive a stick, something to laugh about and text a picture of. He dropped her at her Carolina Forest apartment around 1:15 a.m. on December 18th. Heather called her roommate, who was out of town, to say the night went well. It sounded like a reset, but under it was an old problem that wouldn't let go. Heather had met Sidney Moorer months earlier while she worked as a hostess at the Tilted Kilt. He was older, married, a regular face who came through on maintenance rounds. The affair began in the summer of 2013 and ended by late October or early November. Ending it didn't end the fallout. Tammy Moorer, Sidney's wife, confronted Heather through texts and online posts. The message was direct: "Stay away from my family." Friends told Heather to do exactly that. She tried. At 1:35 a.m., about 20 minutes after Stephen dropped her off, a call hit Heather's phone from a payphone. Phone records would later put that call on Sidney. He wanted to talk. He said he was leaving his wife. Heather phoned her roommate and sounded rattled. Her friend told her not to go anywhere, not to meet him, to get some sleep. The calls kept going, back and forth between Heather and Sidney's phones, across the thin hours after 2, then past 3. Every ring offered the same pressure. Come out, meet me, we'll talk and settle it. Sometime after 3 a.m., Heather left the apartment. What she wore, what she grabbed as the door clicked shut behind her, and what she believed would happen next, those are the gaps no search has ever filled. What is fixed is where her car ended up. By the evening of December 19th, that green Dodge Intrepid was found at Peachtree Landing in the Sockasty area, parked askew near the boat ramp, perpendicular to the marked spaces, locked and empty. No Heather, no purse, keys, or phone inside, no footprints that led cleanly to the water, no sign of a fight in the gravel, just a quiet landing at the edge of a dark river. Horry County Police worked the landing first and then worked outward. Deputies and volunteers knocked doors, posted flyers, and walked the brush with flashlights. Divers dropped into the cold current and swept in lines toward Winya Bay. Airboats skimmed the banks for anything caught in reeds. After New Year's, bones turned up nearby and hope surged, but testing showed they belonged to a man. The maps on the command boards got crowded. The tips still circled the same names. Detectives started stitching together the timeline. They pulled the cell site data and the call logs. They checked cameras at roads that feed toward the landing. Surveillance footage showed a dark pickup. Prosecutors later said it was a Moorer family truck. Moving toward and away from the area in the same window, Heather's phone stopped sending any signal at all. Investigators also learned that the payphone call that restarted contact that night came from Sidney. When confronted, he first denied making it, even questioning whether payphones still existed, then acknowledged the call after being told about surveillance. Prosecutors told jurors the truck's onboard navigation was disabled that night. The picture that took shape wasn't dramatic in the way movies make it. It was ordinary, and that made it worse. An affair that had ended. A furious spouse, late-night calls, a meeting at a quiet place near the water. Then silence. 4 months after Heather vanished, in February 2014, Sidney and Tammy Moorer were arrested. The words in South Carolina's statute mattered. Kidnapping. There doesn't only mean force in a parking lot. It includes decoying or inveigling someone from one place to another. Prosecutors said that's what happened. Sidney used the payphone and the calls to draw Heather out. A meeting followed, and she was taken and never returned. Murder charges were filed too, along with obstruction of justice and later conspiracy. Years would pass before the courtroom answers came into focus. The legal path was slow and public. In 2016, a jury convicted Sidney of obstruction of justice. That year, his first kidnapping trial ended in a hung jury. In October 2018, Tammy stood trial and was found guilty of kidnapping and conspiracy to kidnap. In 2019, Sidney was retried and convicted of kidnapping as well. Each received a 30-year sentence. Appeals followed. The convictions were upheld. Even with verdicts, there was still no grave to visit, no final page to turn. Go back through the timeline and see how stubborn the facts are. On the night she disappeared, Heather's last confirmed movements live in her phone records and in what she told the person who cared about her most in that moment, her roommate. The calls came. Promises were made. Against advice, she went. 2 days later, her car sat locked at a river landing with nothing inside to explain where she went next. There's no video of a hand on her wrist. There's no recorded confession pointing to a patch of woods or a sandbar. There is the human pattern of jealousy, control, and late-night pressure, and then a blank spot that has refused to give way for years. What lands hardest is how normal the night began. Heather was 20. She had friends who worried about her and a father who answered every call. She was learning new things, making plans, trying to put a mistake behind her and get on with her life. She thought a talk would settle it, or at least close the book. She made one more call, one more drive, and that choice met her at a dark landing where the sound carries and the light dies early. People still come to Peachtree Landing, locals who remember the search, visitors who know the case from news clips, and a family that refuses to let the dates grow dull around the edges. They stand at the rail where the river presses past the pilings and lay flowers at the edge of the gravel. When the water drops, searchers look again. When a tip surfaces, deputies check it. The Moorers maintain they didn't do it. The river, like it did that first night, keeps its answer. The case leaves behind a map of preventable harm. A married man who wouldn't stay away. A spouse who turned anger into pressure and threats. A string of calls from a payphone long after midnight. A meeting place chosen for its privacy. The next morning, a father calls and hears nothing but voicemail until a deputy knocks and asks when he last spoke to his daughter. Later, in court, the state lays out the calls, the truck, the timeline, and the law that says luring someone out is kidnapping. Jurors agree. Sentences follow. The one piece that matters most to a family, the where, is still missing. So the dates are repeated out loud, like a promise to keep looking. December 2013. Myrtle Beach, Peachtree Landing, a green Dodge Intrepid locked and empty, parked at an angle that makes no sense if you plan to come back. A phone that goes quiet just after dawn. A river that moves on, because that's what rivers do, even when people can't. Thank you for listening to The Lantern's Tale. Subscribe for more true stories, if you dare.